Yeah, right. Y'all be driving us crazy. You didn't see it, so I said he didn't see it. That's my new.
Yeah, I was. That was like the 5-5. Well, because you know they have to left right. Yeah, so I think Austin did that. Oh, yeah. I have it. You have audio? You have audio?
I do not. Am I the only one who does not have audio?
You have it.
You have it? Look. Nothing on channel 1 at all.
Yeah, they gave us the ride.
I got no clue.
Like it, right. I have to be better. I like it, man. I'm about to go. Oh, yeah.
I just got a random text message that said, tell you to check your Facebook messages.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you do. Got that? Yeah, I remember. I think we're back in
I think we just open mine. Let's see my food here. I'm still here.
Yeah, there's only 2 outs.
What's that mean?
There's only 2 outputs, so I don't know if you're attach those 2 then. So,
Wait, I don't get any audio?
there's only 2 ports that go out.
Okay, well, I got here first. That's not right. I was first here. We were both first. That's not right. That's not my problem if the third person showed up last.
Okay. So I can touch you in then.
I mean, that's...
I'll do that.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. We want to take this opportunity to make sure that throughout tonight we answer those questions that you have. We work together and collect the ideas that you may have, as long as in addition to some of the things that we have that we're going to share with you tonight. Of course, our ultimate goal each and every day is to keep our schools safe. We have a great school system, we have a great community, and we're going to continue to work together to make sure that continues to happen. Tonight, we have our team here that's going to talk about a number of things that will probably answer most of your questions. We have school board members here tonight. Thank you, school board members, for being here. The district office staff, our principals from all of our schools are here. Also want to thank all of our SROs, Chief McDavid, and Assistant Chief, for being here tonight. And I see we have some others also on the police department. So thank you for all being here tonight. Just to make sure that you know everyone that's up here. Of course, to my left is the staff at Zachary High School. Ms. Spence on the end, Mr. Gyro, Mr. McDonald, Ms. Henry, and Principal Tim Jarrett. Over to my right, of course, you know Chief David McDavid, Monty Burke from the district office, and Mr. Ed Mason. Our team will hopefully, like I said, answer those questions that you're here tonight for. And again, but before we get too far into our meeting, just want to remind you that when we're answering those questions, when we deal with students, no employee can disclose any student information without the consent of the student's parents. Therefore, if we do that, we violate the FERPA laws. And so we are not able to discuss any specific things because those would compromise our students' privacy. A lot of times, there's inaccurate information out there. There's lots of inaccurate information. But on our end, we can't combat that inaccurate information because we can't talk about what the actual facts are. Because if we do, we're breaking the law. So that's what we always have to do. So, you know, those are some of the things that I want you to understand before we go through this night. We do want to be transparent. We do want to share with you the things we can share with you. But there are a lot of things that when you ask us specific questions, we can't talk about specific students or specific instances that happen. But we're going to try tonight to give you a broad
Thank you, Mr. Villiers. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming out. Parents, I see a lot of students here as well. Thank you so much for coming out and kind of helping us brainstorm through this thing. You know, I've been in the district for 13 years. This is the best place I've ever worked, and it's all because of the community and the students, and we love them so. Thank you so much for coming. Just a couple of introductory things. I want you to know that 98% of our students do the right thing every day. Every day. And we talked about this in August. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago when I met with them, and they are the reason why all of us come to Zachary High School to work. They are just fantastic. You know, when discipline students, I want you guys to understand, we follow all policy. We follow state law. We follow district law. We have to go by the book. It's what we have to do. And, you know, in school performance scores don't mean anything to me. I'll say that personally, speaking for myself. And I don't care if we're number 1 and number 29. What I told people to my left from day one, 6 years ago, is that I want a safe, productive environment, an environment conducive to learning for our young people, who we all care so much about. So believe me when I say that. Rankings mean nothing. All students are subject to disciplinary procedures as we have on the next bullet. And that means, you know, we had some questions in the past, well, what about maybe students who have disabilities or differently able students in special ed population? It all has to follow the law and policy. So no one is exempt. There may be different ways to get there as far as the consequences is concerned. But everyone is under law and policy. You know, the last bullet on there on the slide is what I take great pride in, because I started doing this 6 years ago with the first group, who I think are now all of us are out of college, right? And we still in this very stage in every class, and I explained to them what the expectations were, how special this place was, Zachary High School, and how no school is like Zachary High School. And none of that has changed. That's our belief, those are our expectations. I stood up here 6 years ago, and even back in 2014 when I was principal for a little while, and we looked at those kids, and they had those planners, and we went through the rules. No one's going to be allowed to do this, no one's going to be allowed to do that without a consequence. We did that again, we did this in August. We didn't get to do it last year because of COVID, and COVID ruined a lot of things. In my opinion, the schools, the kids not being in school for a year, but that's another topic. We did get to do it this year in the gym in August. We met with all of those classes. After the recent uptick of these fights that we had at the school, we called the students back into the gym a couple weeks ago. And we went through this again and told them how much I would fight for that 98% who was dear to my heart, and making sure that your learning environment was taken care of. And with the 2% who don't follow the rules, they would eventually work their way out of here. So we reiterated that a couple of weeks ago. On the next slide, I just want you to know, and Mr. McDonald will talk more about this because he's an expert in this field. Some of the security measures that we have in place, we have more, and we tell the kids this, we have 170 cameras on campus, on the high school campus. 170. That's a lot of cameras. And we've moved on to a higher technology where most of them didn't work when I got here. And thanks to Mr. Villiers and the board, Officer Nevels, we were able to get very good high quality cameras where we can see most of the campus. You know, it helps keep the kids safe, the campus safe. It also assists us with investigations. Because sometimes students are less than truthful when they talk to Mr. McDonald, but the camera is never less than truthful. It shows all. So those, you might say the camera is okay, but yes, it's a huge deterrent because the kids know that their own candy cameras, so to speak, almost everywhere. Also, I want to assure you that the administration and teachers and staff and our officers and our great officers over here to my left are always on duty. You know, when the bell rings, we're in the halls every day. We've been in the halls every day for 6 years at lunch and cafeteria every day. We enjoy it. That's the best part of my time. At school, we talk to the students as they walk by. And saying hello to me, and which gets me excited when someone says good morning, Mr. Jordan. That makes my day. So we're out there, and we're everywhere that we can be. Obviously, we can't be in every nook and cranny, but we really feel confident we have a campus covered as far as supervision. And it's something that I stress to the teachers also. Every year in August, we talk about supervision. It's so important. Supervision is the key to it all. I know not everyone can be everywhere every time, but boy, we try to be. None of us are behind the desk people. You'll never really find us in our office unless I'm trying to sign a check real quick and then we run out. Especially in the buildings. Where the kids are on campus is where we are, typically, and our teachers do a wonderful job as well, standing by the door every class change and monitoring the halls as well. So, and I have to thank our awesome teachers for that. You know, we always talk about, we talk to kids, when I talk to the kids in the gym at the beginning of the year, and on the intercom, I speak to them daily. You know, we always talk to our kids and our teachers, hey, look, if you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something. And I want y'all to know that they're so awesome at that. We are able to intervene in so many areas, and so many incidents don't happen because our students are so awesome and say, hey, Mr. Donald, you know, I heard this, and then we investigated it immediately. You know, my philosophy to Mr. McDonald, and I took over 6 years ago, is I want to look under every stone. We never let anything lie. If we hear it, we think, well, 99% is not true, we still follow it. And I want to promise you, that's what we do. We do it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting, but we do it every day. And I promise you that we'll continue to do it. Another thing is the gaggle up there. The gaggle is if one of your children types what they call a hot word into their email, and mentions something like fight or beat up or suicide, and one of those words, it triggers the gaggle safety system, and all of us get an email. I think even the school board office does, and it alerts us that, hey, this word was mentioned in your student's email. Some of your parents may have gotten a call about that before. It could be profanity, it could be anything. There are keywords that trigger. We will get these alerts sometimes, and this is how good the system is. It'll pick it up if it's done at 2 a.m. in the morning. You know, I've been woken from sleep, and we had profanity in an email. You know, obviously it was something that was serious. We've called parents at 2 in the morning after the safety gap email wakes us all up. But that's something that we continue to monitor day by day, and never let that lie either. We take all of that so seriously. Another thing that the district put in place for Mr. Walls a couple of years ago, and I think you parents may have received this in the letters that they sent out last week, was our Safe School Alert Anonymous online tip reporting system. So there's a way, and again, it's in his letter, the link, where if you have a tip that you want to report anonymously, that will get to the school, and the district and school staff are monitoring this system. So you can go back and look at the letter Mr. D sent, and the link is there. So I just want to start with that introduction, and move on to the next.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Burke. I'm the supervisor of school and home relations with the district. And let me just start out by saying we certainly appreciate you being here. We know why you're here. You're concerned about your students' well-being, as are we. I've always kind of been of the belief that, you know, look, academics is great. All the surrounding programs are great. But the number one issue in a parent's mind is knowing that my child is going to never come to school. It's going to be safe. It's going to be returned to me at the end of the day the same way that he or she got on that bus in the morning or got dropped off in the morning. So we are certainly on the same page with you as far as that's concerned. I want to address just a few things. There's a number of topics that I'll discuss tonight, and I'm just going to kind of go over in general. I'll start with residency checks. I think there's been some concern out there, you know, with the students getting in trouble, or the they live in the Zachary district, that sort of thing, and so forth. I can tell you, we monitor residency on an ongoing basis and on a daily basis. I have access to a system as part of through my job, rather, that requires an additional clearance, and it allows me to go in and when I have alerts, I can monitor, I can pull certain data that's maybe not available to the general public. school staff is fantastic with this. I communicate with most of our clerks at the different schools on a daily basis. They know what things to look out for and which things to monitor. You know, there's certain telltale signs that kind of tip us off to, something's just not right. You know, things that it could be, I won't get into too much detail, but it could be something as simple as, you know, a student shows up late, just shows up late to school on a consistent basis. You know, why is that? Why are they not just getting on a bus and going to school? Or why is it difficult for them to get to school on time? And so anything like that can trigger an investigation. And so there are a number of different things, there are a number of different ways that I address that. Certainly the system that I mentioned, that's sort of my initial check. Home visits, you know, home visits. I will go on, I've been known to not only go to work at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I'm greeted by a bathrobe and you know, hair all over the place and whatnot. And of course, I give my apology, but I know that, you know, this is part of what we did. We're investigating. We received a report or something to that effect. Something has generated the concern for me to come out here and check. We follow up on all these. We do monitor, I think, as Mr. Jordan mentioned earlier, with the tip line. Tip comes in on the tip line. We're going to monitor that. You know, we're going to look into that. We're going to take it all the way through. One of the first things that I did come in is I looked at the short-term housing. You know, because it's realistic to expect that someone comes in and sign a 6-month lease in some cases, a year lease in some cases, and then, you know, move on. So those are things that we've monitored. I've maintained good contact with a lot of our landlords and apartment complexes and so forth within the district. Sort of built a little contact list with them. We've implemented, you know, one of the things we have that's a reality. You know, it's not unheard of for me to get a call and say, you know, look, I'm falling on some hard times. I'm coming to stay with my mother who lives in Zachary at this time, with my cousin who lives in Zachary at this time. And so we've got to have procedures in place for dealing with that because, you know, if it's a sudden move, then typically they don't have those same things. Many of you in here, if you came to enroll your child in the school system, you would show up with a copy of your mortgage, your lease, your DEMCO or energy bill, your water bill from the city of Zachary, all those things that a lot of our parents would be able to provide relatively easy. That's not always the case. So, you know, it's an interesting process. It's a process that's maybe not as simple as it looks on the surface, but one that we take extremely seriously. The next thing that I want to address, there's been some talk about the Discipline Committee, and that's actually the Discipline Policy Review Committee. The Discipline Policy Review Committee is a committee that's put together. This is mandated by law. It's an older law in the books. I believe it dates back to 1994. It regained some traction last year when we were going through virtual and so forth, and the governor sent out an alert for us to reconvene and make sure that we had reconvened the Discipline Policy Review Committee to review our virtual policies that were in place, and virtual discipline specifically. At that point, we went through the process, and this was a little over a year ago, and I would tell you the makeup of the Discipline Policy Review Committee is another thing that is built into the law. There are specific positions. It's a 16-member committee. On it, you'll have classroom teachers, but not only classroom teachers. Some have to come from the secondary level, some have to come from the elementary level, some have to come from the middle school level. You have to include our special ed teachers. You have to include our counselors, our principals, both secondary and elementary. Child Welfare and Attendance Officer, which is another term for my position at the office. We have to have representation from the school bus drivers. Superintendents designate. We also have parents on that committee. right before the last two, the 2 years for the annual review, right before the school board meeting, we would have a public hearing for that. And also at our board meetings, as policies are generated, as laws change, our policies have to be updated, and that is all part of the discussion. And ultimately, it goes to the board for their approval to approve for us to put those new policies in place. So it's a number of different times that you'll see those policies brought up in the public setting. One item to note, we do have an item going up for policy adoption tomorrow, and it's a revision to our electronic telecommunications device policy. One of the things, and this is kind of a hot button item at this particular point. We've had some instances where we've had some fights on campus, as you know, that's why we're here. But the first thing we see happening in that video is several kids pulling out phones, starting a video, and this and that. And those ultimately make their rounds on social media and so forth. And it creates an image for the school that is really not indicative of what takes place day in and day out. I want to talk a little bit about zero tolerance.
No, ma'am, we'll take those at the end.
I want to talk a little bit about zero tolerance policy. Students involved in a fight at school, and this is reading from the policy, students involved in a fight at school will be subject to suspension or expulsion. It's our expectation that students will do everything that they can to avoid a fight, but we do understand that sometimes it may be unavoidable. Non-aggressive self-defense allows the student to defend themselves against an attack to the point where the attacker backs off. So there is a built-in piece that does address non-aggressive self-defense. Our school system has certainly taken an approach to zero tolerance approach when it comes to fighting. There are harsh consequences. But I do want to mention that not all fights result in an expulsion. There are processes that we have to go through. There's due process, there's a hearing process, and there's an appeals process that goes along with that. There are situations on campus that are coded as a fight. For example, we've had situations where students get in a verbal altercation in the classroom. We've treated it as a fight, and they've suffered the consequences that they would have had it gone with blows. There's been some minor fights on campus where the students were taken care of, the students were handled, but it may have not elevated to the point of a recommendation for expulsion. And then we have those major fights where they become a major campus disturbance. When we're looking at a major campus disturbance, there's a number of factors that we look at. Does it impede? And Mr. McDonald has a great way of explaining the major disturbance on campus criteria. Does it impede traffic? Whether that's something that, automobile driving across the campus. Is it bus traffic? Is it student traffic in the hallway? We're going through a class change when you go to 1,600 students at the high school, and there's a fight in the middle of that hallway, and that's more likely than not going to get qualified as a major disturbance. When that happens, those students come before the district and before me personally in an expulsion hearing. So we do not tolerate, we don't condone it, and we punish it to the maximum extent possible. I do want to point out that, before I do that, I will mention a couple other zero tolerance. When it comes to drugs, weapons, those follow the state law. There are some things that I have discretion at here. There are some things I don't have discretion about. There are specific laws, specific time frames that have to be adhered to for certain items that come across in an expulsion hearing. One thing I do want to mention, and I don't know if this is the expectation or not, but just understand that we can't, by law, expel a student forever. We can't expel a student for 4 years. We can't expel a student for 2 or 3 years. You know, we have maximum amounts of time that we can do that. We also, we can't disenroll students from the district. We can't say, you got to fight. You're gone. You no longer part of this district. Go find somewhere else to go to school. You know, even if we expel from school, we still have to service the educational needs of that student. That's by state law. This slide I kind of touched on, and Mr. Jordan mentioned it as well. I understand the administration is following the state and federal law as well as the district policy and a student handbook. That means that students are entitled to due process. We have to give them an opportunity to plead their case. We do that in a number of different ways. At the initial meeting on campus, specifically at the high school, Mr. McDonald meets with those students. Hey, tell me, give me your statement. And oftentimes we come to a hearing and don't have a written statement attached to that package. And that takes us to the hearing. We have the hearing, and of course we make a decision at the hearing. And then that decision can be appealed. You know, if the parent doesn't agree with the decision that I make at the hearing, it can go through, it can go up to the board for an appeal. Just in general, a couple of our discipline, I guess, levels of punishment, so to speak, and this, keep in mind, is for suspensions. They can be one of 3 different types. The first one is what we determine to be, or what we classify as a short-term suspension. That would be anywhere from 2 days to 9 days. That can be assigned at the school level. The school has the ability to assign up to a 9-day suspension. Anything beyond that requires them to come to a hearing. Once they come to a hearing, the options available to me at the hearing are essentially to affirm the school's recommendation and uphold that expulsion, or to modify that expulsion in some way, shape, or form. I could modify it down to a long-term suspension, which would be anywhere from 10 to 20 days. Depending on the evidence brought in the case, I could modify it down to the original 9 days given. There was a new law that hit the books this past year that said once we recommend a student for expulsion, even at the hearing, if I were to reduce it back to the original 9 days, they still have the ability to appeal that decision to the board. And essentially, they will be appealing the original suspension. There are a couple of automatics for expulsions. I mentioned drugs and weapons and so forth, and that's just restated here. Assault and battery on school employees would be another. And there are some others that we in the school system would take directly to an expulsion hearing. Also, suspended and expelled students are not allowed to attend school events. I know when we have an expulsion hearing, that is something we made clear in that expulsion hearing. And I'm not sure if this is a procedure that is already in place or one that is being looked at as being implemented. But we did mention, we had a discussion today about a do not admit list of students who were suspended or expelled at those events so that the staff members can verify that. The last thing I'm going to talk about in my portion of the presentation at this particular point is I want to point out some data. I put some numbers for our school system, and this is data up through October 31st. I compared the 2019-20 school year to this school year. I did not use last year's data because last year, as you know, many of our students were were in virtual programs and so forth, so you wouldn't get an accurate representation if you compared last year. So we went back to the 2019-2020 school year and added to this year. So the first line, instigates or participates in fights. We had 15 students, and I want to point out that this is students. This is not fights. We didn't have 15 fights. We had 15 students involved in some type of fight or altercation in 2019 and 2020 through October 31st. This year, through that same time period, we've had 19. Increase of 4 students from that time period. We talked earlier about major disturbance, and that's the big one where the fight causes major disturbance and where they're generally brought to a hearing. Through October 31st in 2019-20, there were 3 students. Through that same time period this year, 11. Increase of 8. And I do want to make mention that at the increase of the 8 students, we had 4 fights from about the last week in October. And, you know, we handled those, you know, we spent the last week or so working through that and handling it according to our policies. So, you know, when things come in waves like that, it's easy to look around and say, fighting over there every day. And look, from the outside, I get it. But pulling the number and the data, we were actually on our way off, or starting off the year relatively slow, you know, from a discipline standpoint. Surprisingly slow from a discipline standpoint. I had expected more up to that particular point. This is one of those things where be careful what you think about, because they have a way of coming true. But it's no secret. We've had an uptick in this last week, and you know, we're going to do everything that we are able to do to address that and to deter that. Other things to mention, and then I'll quit talking for a little bit, but of our discipline, when we look at our discipline comparison and the number of referrals that we've had this year, and try to get an idea of the major issues that we face in our schools, we really find 2% of our population, or 2%, and it could be, well, I don't think we have any repeaters in this category, but 2% have received referrals to fight. 1.3% for major disturbance, 31% for toys, 13% failure to serve assigned consequence. So what that means is student accumulated a certain number of toys, they were assigned to a detention or a Saturday school or something like that, they didn't show up. So that referral, in a sense, is sort of linked to the initial one that got them into the detention of the Saturday school. And then, the one that's really up there as well, cell phone violations. So those are the major issues that the high school is dealing with on a daily basis. And I just wanted to put that in there to give us a little bit of perspective, and try to be as transparent as we possibly can. Thank y'all. I'll pass it to social media.
Again, thank you guys for coming out. At high school, we always speak about every day we want to get better. So to have a community that comes out to support our schools and to help us look at some of these matters is very appreciated. Talk just real quick on social media. I would say 95% of the problems that I see with altercations with kids, whether it be from a verbal altercation to a physical altercation, has started on social media. And that's not at school. That's when they leave here at 2:15, those songs come out, and that goes on and on and on. So all I can do is stress to you guys as parents and part of this community is just talk to your kids. I can't tell you how many times that I meet with parents and they come in and they say, Mr. McDonald, I knew this was going on for the last couple of weeks. I just thought it would take care of itself. It never does. It never does. So if you ever see anything or hear anything from your kids, no matter how minor you may think it is, please call me. Talk those scarier pretty good at preventing things. That's one thing that as this has gone on with the videos that came out of the fights, that's a very small sample size of how many things that we deal with. We stop a lot more from happening. That doesn't make TikTok or Facebook, because that's good news. So understand that we are working every day. I have conversations with parents every day with concerns about something going on with their kids on social media, or even in their neighborhood. So if you hear anything, please contact us, and let us handle that with the kids. That should pretty much cover social media. I talked to a parent the other day, and I just basically told her one thing, that social media is the devil. And that's what we're dealing with that. Kids cannot put it down, they can't stop dealing with it. And COVID has really set us up, really have some battles with that, because for a year and a half, that was their world. So please help us out with that. I'm just a phone call away. My door is always open. Please come in and visit. And thank you so much for everything that you do for our kids and the city. Thank you.
Well, as you know, we have a number of school resource officers throughout our district. Of course, we have school resource officers located at every school, or a detail officer who is a full-time officer that, when they're off, they work at details at our schools. Of course, the school resource officers, the detail officers are all paid for by the Zachary Community School District. We partner with the Zachary Police Department and work together in making all that happen. In the last month, we have added an additional detail officer on the high school campus, which at this time we have 3 officers on the campus that's there every day. I also want to make sure you understand that at all of our events, we have officers on duty at any of our events that are taking place in high school. So, we appreciate everything that the police department does for Zachary school system. Also, not only just the police department, all of our public service in Zachary. I mean, we do lots of things with the fire department, and also the city officials and all the public officials in Zachary. I know we have a couple of city councilmen here tonight, and I appreciate them because we truly do work together as a community and all the facets of keeping our schools, but also our community safe. Thank you to Chief McDavid for everything you do. We've been partners and friends for a long time. Enemies at sometimes with baseball teams, but for the most part, we've been friends, and we work close together. And so, Chief, thank you, and I'll turn the mic over.
I'm not talking about when we being on these 14 and 15-year-olds who can't get their time. My name is Chief David David. I've been with the police department since 1984. Product of the school system here. My kids are product of the school system here. My grandkids are product of my nieces and nephews. This school system is dear to me. Growing up through the school system, I was a class clown. I got in trouble too through high school, and I didn't like the principal of our system. But as I got older, I had children, and I appreciate everything they've done for me at the school. And, I know how important it is for you and your kids and y'all come to this school for the safety of it. Now, let me tell you about SROs here. And, SROs are not here to dictate policy for the school system. That's the school's job. Our job here is to ensure the safety, security, welfare, and all students, faculty, staff, and visitors on this campus. If students leave this school on a field trip, we will. Whether it be Grand Isle and trees, astronaut space station we went 4 years ago in Houston, Texas, we're there. You go wherever field trip you go, we're there with these students. We think that's very important. We want to ensure you that we're going to be there in case the bus breaks down, a coach these kids, mentor kids. We have been mentoring kids in this school for over 20-some years with our mentorship program that the school does, along being involved with, I think, the group program here at the school. And we've been involved in our school system. I can go back when I was a reserve officer from 84 to 88, we were involved in our school system. We think it's very, very important. Let me give you some stats that I have compiled that has happened since 2017 in the school system. Or calls at this address at 4100 Rockville Lane. For 2017 to now, we have 62 incidents. Of course, Justin Evans, who's our head SRO here at the high school, has done 42 of them. And we've had 13 arrests. So if you look at that, 62 instances where we got involved, 12 incidents a year, and up to 2 arrests a year here at the school. Now, we work at the school on drug arrests. Physical encounter, we've had one battery on school teacher, we have drug arrests, domestic violence arrests, illegal carrying weapons on school, improper supervision, improper telephone, marijuana arrest, remaining to be forbidden, sexual battery arrest, simple battery, assault and terrorism, terrorizing, and individual warrior. That's some of the things we cover, and we've become involved in our schools. And we work hand in hand with the administration here, the teachers. I get calls from teachers and parents all the time of something going on. And we get involved every way we can to make sure, this place is safe for your kids to come to school here every day. And that includes bomb threat. We get a call about a bomb threat, we're going to make sure we don't get to the bottom of it. One of my chief detectives over there at Ty Stevens, he's one of our forensic computer guys who has a computer about this big. We download everything from cell phones, iPads, computers. And we can tell you everything done and said on cell phones, iPads, computers. We make a lot of arrests, we do a lot of search behind them, the cell phones that we see. So we have that program. Many agencies come to us because we're one of the few in this area that has that forensic telephone computer that we partnership with the Secret Service. We did that program, and he's been trained and certified along officers. So we think that's very important. That's one of our tools we use to make sure that these kids are not being stalked, not being bullied on social media. We work on that hand in hand every day. Like the superintendent video says, and Mr. Jordan, if they get a code word on the computer or something, we're notified of it too. Our SROs are notified of it. We get involved and we find out what's going on. We start issuing subpoenas to see what really happened. And we think that's very important. Each year we do 2 or 3 drug searches to students. The school administration does not know when we're coming. I get the SROs, they give me a calendar, we figure out what's the best day. We bring in Department of Corrections officials, we bring in police department, sheriff's department, we bring drug dogs in, and we search the school. And I think that's very important because we will make sure the school is safe. And it does some drugs to the body, yes it do. We have a full-time narcotics officer. I had one who left with the sheriff's office, I have another one now. And he's made a ton of arrests, he's among the vehicles, and drugs are here. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I worked for over 20 years here in Zachary. It's here. As long as the demand is here, supplies on the need now. And we can't arrest our way out of everything. And we're trying to do everything we can to stop it. And all we can do is put it into it, work hard at it. And we work with the task force, which consists of Zachary, Baker, East Avenue Fairs, and pushing out Monkey Fairs, Constable's Office, and surrounding areas. We work every week in this area on drugs, and we work undercover operations, and we do all kinds of stuff. And I can't go into it. We also handle human traffic. We do a lot of that. We work with the FBI, state police, at the local hotels. If they have a big Super Bowl event, my guys down in New Orleans work on human traffic. We work human traffic at our hotels here. We partner with our churches here to work on human traffic. We think that's a big problem. As you saw on the news tonight, human traffic is a big problem in Louisiana and East Africa. And drugs and human traffic go hand in hand. That's what we do. We work hard. And like I say, I'm proud of the men over here at SROs. They work hard. They work some late nights. They're here at the school, at functions, whether it be wrestling, basketball, baseball, football, whatever sporting event or field trip, they're here. And we're going to make sure, ensure each one of your kids, wives, husbands, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, who work in these school systems are safe, and they can come here to get the quality education at this school. I got a quality education. I think it's important everybody can come here and get you have any questions afterward, feel free to see me. That's some of our stats we've had this year, and like I said, the last arrest we had in the school system here was February 26, 2021, at three of them fighting each other back. That's the last arrest we had at the school system. I know everything that goes on. My SROs keep me updated every day. I see the reports, I read every report every day I come in on the weekend, Mondays, I see everything that goes on here in the city. I think it's very important. We're here to maintain the safety of each and every kid here. We think that's very important that we do that. Like I said, if you have any questions, see me out today.
All right, the next topic is something that we actually deal with probably once a week, where we'll get a report from parents, concerned friends that come in dealing with bullying. I'm not going to insult your intelligence or reading the definition, but that's what we take for our bearing when we start our process. And we have a process that's set out by the state of Louisiana that when we are notified of an accusation of bullying, we start our process. And that's every account that we get. And there's a process of talking to kids, being involved with listening to the kids, talking to the accused, but also talking to the victim, talking to friends that may or may not have heard what was going on. And we see that a lot, where just not everybody hears what's going on. But at the high school, one of the things that we want you guys to understand is that we see a lot of what we go in headstrong into dealing with bullying. And when we start getting cell phones of both parties, we start seeing that this has been going on for quite some time, and it's a two-way street. And so we deal with that accordingly. We have lots of things that we do here at the high school, other than just the suspensions that Mr. Burke was talking about earlier. So just don't think that that's all we do is suspend kids, because that's not. That's the end game of everything. But we'd much rather talk to the kids and get them on the right path and making the right decisions. But one of the things that we use here at the high school that has been very effective in accusations of bullying, but also just kids that can't get along. I talk to people all the time and tell them, we have a small city of 1,600 people in this very small city, the Zachary High School. Not everyone is going to get along. And so our stay-away agreement that we use is very effective. That's just a simple piece of paper that we send home to the parents that say, little Johnny needs to stay away from little Joe. That they can't get along, and we look at their schedule, we look at how they come to school, so that those kids don't put themselves in a position to get in trouble. It's been very effective. And a lot of times that's all the kids need, is just that stay-away agreement to say, hey, I can't get in trouble, I don't want to go sleep with carriers and McDonald's. So understand, we have a lot of pathways for these students to keep them from getting in trouble and getting ultimately to the suspension. But some of them choose to go that route anyway. But just understand, bullying, as soon as it's reported to us, weekly, we're getting these calls that we start our process of investigation and getting to the root of what has happened. So again, it comes down to what I told you guys earlier. If you hear anything, if you see anything, please notify us so that we can address it with those kids.
Good evening. I'm Erica Henry, the Assistant Principal for Curriculum and Instruction, and it's my pleasure to talk about social and emotional development. So in addition to our 5 administrators, our dean of students, 117 teachers, 3 school resource officers, we have 4 counselors who loop with our students. So our counselors mark their grade level will be with their student or their children until he or she graduates. We're big on relationships with our kids. We talk about that throughout this entire presentation. One of our favorite times of the day is lunch shift, because we get to see the kids, talk to the kids, find out about their day, learn what's going on with them. Our counselors meet with the students every semester. They talk about academics, they talk about conflict resolution, they talk about future planning, they talk about things for our students to help them become socially, academically, and emotionally secure. We do have an open door policy, and your students are aware of it. They come by every day. Can I talk to you? Yes, come on in. They email us, they write us notes, and we're happy to address all of their concerns. The administration is currently looking at a mentoring program where every faculty and staff member will have a group of students assigned to them, just like counselors will school board, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mason to talk about some of the resources that we have for our students.
Good evening. I'm Ed Mason, and unfortunately, you probably have heard my name connected to COVID. So I want you to leave that alone, and let's talk about social emotional, which is a lot. We have 2 district-wide social workers at this time, and through money that are being presented from the state, we're trying to hire 2 more social workers. Contracting with 2 more social workers, one specifically to serve the high school, and the other for the rest of the schools. So we have a total of 7 schools, one will be high school and the others. But our social workers at this time, they are the ones who are responsible for providing all counseling for our students, individuals, some group, along with some of our school counselors. They also do that. We're planning to work with university interns, so we're going to bring interns in, social work interns from universities. And we're planning to contract with other agencies, where we mentioned once before, I don't know if it was in this venue, but about providing some reactive, but I hate to call it reactive, but reactive services to students who are in the disciplinary center for expulsion or suspension. But we also want to be proactive. And we're going to identify some other agencies who will provide services, both individual, group, some family services. But children have been identified as a need. We have 2 district social psychologists who belong to our department. And we also contract with a behavioral specialist to take care of some behavior issues. Up to this point, if you remember, many of you remember the last 2 years, we did an assessment and a screening with our students 5th through 12th grade. We did not go below that. We went 5th through 12th. And we did a needs assessment. For that needs assessment, our social workers provided more intense therapy and training and counseling for our students. Now, as we're moving forward, we plan to implement a new district-wide kindergarten through 12 social and emotional learning program. It involves self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, goal-directed behavior, personal responsibility, decision-making, and optimistic thinking. The program will assist us in building individual learning programs for each student who is in assessment, kindergarten through 12, with parental permission, of course. So I want you to hear that, so when you see it come home, asking for permission, the assessment is just a few minutes long. That's it. We'll do one in the beginning, like in January, and we'll do it again in May. And what we'll do is progress monitor to see. We'll have an intervention program for every student. Some students need it more than the others. Some are going to be more at risk. For those students who are more at risk is where we move into individual counseling, that type of thing. But for those who are not as much at risk, we talk about the percentage. Those students will learn the skills every day somehow through their teachers, through the counselors, and we will give that information to you for them to carry home and to learn to home. We will have what we call SEL teams, which is social and emotional learning teams at every school. And every school will have an administrator, a counselor, a social worker, the social worker assigned to that school, and a teacher in that committee to make some decisions about the data they receive, which you will be giving them, and what students need. Again, we hope to provide a lot of services also to families, to the community, and we certainly will look forward to any input you have, suggestions you may have from your home and from the community. Thank you.
Just a couple more things you and I forgot to mention too. Each year, during the year, our SROs, along with principals and staff, does a lot of active shooter lockdowns. I go along with all these events. I'm going to tell you something. There's some hiding places in these schools strength know, staff works, cafeteria work with know. I've been on, sometimes I can't find them, and it's tough there. They do a wonderful job each year, Zachary year. We do assessments on that. Our SROs do assessments during summer on cameras and what we can do to better make safety here at Zachary School. And that's some of the things I just want to talk about and get some high points in that. We think that's very important that we do this. And these teachers come train on this every year. And we do a week-long active shooter training at one of the schools with other agencies. We're prepared and we're ready to go if something does happen.
Thank you, Chief. Well, we've come to the time where it's your turn. At this time, if you are wanting to speak or make a comment, please fill out one of these pieces of paper. Do we have any extras? Anyone need one? Here we go. They'll bring you one. But while we wait for those to come, we do have a few, and we'll get started. First is Ashton Ario.
But I would like to defer because Ms. Mason addressed that whole social emotional level. So I would like to defer my question.
Thank you. It's Crystal Gillespie. Crystal.
Yes, I was reading on social media that a group of parents around the Dallas area created groups like Dads on Patrol or the Mom equivalent. How about if we can do something like that here to help out where needed?
Yes, actually, Ms. Gillespie, I spoke to our school board attorney in Baton Rouge this morning about the ins and outs of that and what we would have to do, and you know because it would be a volunteer process, but we would have to look at making sure that anyone that was willing to come in and be part of that program would have to be fingerprinted, drug tested, and go through
I'll sign up right now.
the training that's what he recommends.
I'll be your first volunteer.
All right. Well, we'll definitely work on getting that get that rolling soon. We do have some school up in the northern part of the state that started that program also, so we'll get contact with them. Okay, Ms. Crystal McGee. And after Ms. Crystal will be Ms. Brittany Heine.
Good evening. Most of everything has already been addressed. I appreciate the very positive things that you guys are doing. It's not going unnoticed. I did want to say that the root of this problem that we are having starts at home. You know, I told my kid that if he goes to school and acts out, it's gonna be 2 people arrested, him and me. Because he knows that we do not tolerate foolishness. You go to school to get an education, and that's it. Now, if you want to do extracurricular activities, that's cool. I support you, but I will not support foolishness. And parents need to step up and not tolerate foolishness from their kids too. You know, we can point the finger at the school board, at the officers, but sometimes the finger needs to be pointed at us. That's the main problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Brittany?
I'm pretty loud, not like Mike. Your discipline policy review
have a no visible tattoo policy. This week alone, 2 photos were posted at least of male athletes with visible tattoos.
Yes, ma'am.
So unless I missed it, I didn't see any exemptions on your policy. If a student is suspended or expelled and they are on a school team, are they allowed to come back and play that sport? If so, why? Should they not also be losing that shouldn't that also be a consequence of their poor choices? The mandated anger management and other things that are laid out in the handbook. Maybe we should start making parents be mandated to attend those with their children, because if they start to be inconvenienced, maybe they'll become more involved in their children. You answered my question about outside sources for other things. It's been brought to my knowledge by at least one student that they came to your office about bullying and absolutely nothing was done about it. I'm not sure I understand the difference between a campus disturbance and a physical altercation. I've been told by one of your staff members, for an example, if a fight occurs in a bathroom, that doesn't necessarily cause a disturbance. It's just a physical altercation, that there is no form of consequence given. If you have a repeat offender of physical altercations or violent acts, but that subject is an athlete, I've been told they are given a different set of consequences and rules. It is very, very obvious that whatever is going on now is not working. The violence has escalated. A child got stabbed. And to my knowledge, the child who stabbed him should have had no business on campus. You mentioned that you were going to put in a place a no admit. How do you plan on managing that? And at what point will ZPD not be able to sustain 3 officers in this school full time? That's a lot. I know you don't have a lot of officers on the road as it is. You're asking for more now. I know that things are getting worse in Zachary as a whole, not just within our community school. And it's not just in Zachary High School. It's in CME. It's probably at the middle school too. These are just the things that I've been told about. Also, I'd like to know how many of our school board members who claim they are for our kids even have students who are of age to be in Zachary Community Schools have their kids here. You want to make our school better, but you don't even like our schools enough to send your own kids.
Turner. Mrs. Brittany, I'm going to need you to...
I can email it to you first thing in the
Yes.
We need answers for those questions.
My statement was going to be, can you give me those one at a time? Because that was a lot.
I was told I had 3 minutes, so I was trying to get
Yeah.
Your discipline policy review. What parents are actually on this committee and how were they chosen?
The list, the discipline review committee, we will post that group on the website.
She said who chose them.
Sorry?
Who chose them?
Yeah.
Who chose them?
Yeah. Yeah, let me address the discipline policy review committee. So the law specifies the makeup of the committee.
That's who made that bylaw.
Excuse me.
Who made the bylaw you're going by?
So So what we had, there are certain members on there that have to be elected. Most of those are teaching positions and so forth. So what we did is we sent out a survey, an initial survey, to ask who would be interested in being on that particular committee. Once we got that information back, there were some in specific categories that we had to have. They were the only one that had applied for it in that particular area. So those were, by default, got in there. Any of the categories where we had multiple, then we had to go back and vote on that. And there were several categories that we ended up voting on, and that's how the makeup of that committee basically got brought together. I'm sorry?
That notice came out on Monday evening to vote, and it was brought back for Tuesday morning. That's right. Yeah.
What does the policy say about that position? What does the policy say about that position?
The discipline policy review committee is made up by law, by state law.
What does the policy say? I got it written there.
I didn't bring it up, the specific law.
Will you be reevaluating your current zero tolerance policy, and have you not been enforcing it with the recent issues and incidents?
Each year, at the end of the school year, we meet with the administrators at all the schools, and also we have school improvement teams from the schools to discuss that, and they bring those to our meeting between administrators, Mr. Burke, and the team that we have, and they talk about those changes in policies. There has not been, I don't think, any changes in that policy in a long time. The zero tolerance policy has been in effect for a long time, and it has been followed.
So are
Now-
athletes exempt from that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are they
Not at
exempt
all.
from anything within your handbook?
They are not. No one is exempt from any of those policies.
So I don't have a problem with tattoos, that's to each their own, but when one rule is only good for certain kids and not all kids, that's what I have an issue with.
Yeah, if you saw
Oh, it's all
pictures
over
of kids,
Facebook.
and I understand.
You can't miss it.
We will look into that, and we'll have to, okay, next question, Ms. Hunter.
Let's see. Why is there a difference between a campus disturbance and a physical altercation, and does one allow consequences and the other not? So if I have a fight, it doesn't disrupt anybody's day, I'm good, I'm going back to class. But if it disrupts the flow of traffic anywhere, I get suspended.
I will, Mr. McDonald, you want to discuss that? I'll add something out of
That's something the committee make a judgment on.
If a student fights in a bathroom, they are suspended.
Okay.
One or both.
They are suspended. If they fight, there is a fight between 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, those students are suspended, and some of those students will be recommended for expulsion. The difference between fighting in the bathroom or fighting on a PE kickball field and a major campus disturbance is what we had talked about earlier, is did it impede traffic? We are good kids trying to get to class, our parents coming to pick up kids, our buses trying to leave campus. And does it take multiple people that need to go and break up the fight to try to, dispel what's going on and put themselves in danger?
But ultimately, the consequences should be the same, right?
Not by the handbook. In the handbook, if you look at our handbook for major campus disturbance, it is a recommendation for expulsion.
Well, that,
Tell me.
okay, let me explain.
Traffic, and then now,
there's different levels of confrontation. Okay? There's
A fight's a fight.
no, it's not.
If you want to speak, fill the car out. I'm trying to listen, everybody else trying to listen. Don't disturb everybody else that's trying to speak. One person at a time. If you want to speak, go get a car and speak at the microphone. We want to hear everything, so quit interrupting.
Okay. So, to answer your question, if we deal with, and the codes that have to go into the state, because everything there's codes. If two kids are arguing in each other's face, technically, they code that as a fight. But that's not an expellable offense, so they may get 3-day suspension. If it becomes more of, okay, one pushes the other one pushes back, it may be 5 days. This is an example, okay? So there's different levels, and what we have to do, and what they do, is they go back, they interview the people who were fighting, they interview some people who were witnesses of the fight, they pull the cameras to see what happens. And someone was asking me, why don't we just arrest every kid that fights? Okay, well, here's the thing. Sometimes the fight happens, and if we arrest those two kids and all of them, and one of them's your child, and after we investigate and look at the cameras, pull the cameras, do all those things, your kid was attacked, your kid had to fight their way out of this. It was self-defense, but we just arrested the kid. So the issue is that we have to take each situation, evaluate the situation, and divvy out the punishment from there. So it's not always equal. It's always equal when it fits in those categories. And that's what Mr. McDonald and the staff at the high school tried to be very consistent. But that's going to be different depending on the severity of the fight, how big it was, how much of a disturbance it was. And so the ones that are major campus disturbances go to a recommended expulsion. And then the other zero tolerance part, where it's truly zero tolerance, is for drugs and weapons.
So if a student is suspended or expelled and they are an athlete on a school team, are they allowed to come back to that sport once their suspension is over with, or their expulsion?
If they are suspended,
Okay.
while they're suspended, any student cannot participate in any extracurricular activities. Why? When they come back, they can.
Should that not also be a consequence of their poor choices and behavior?
Well, no.
We gotta maintain that for what it looks like.
Some kids make mistakes and.
And hey, I'm for that.
Yeah, good.
But I'm also for
But
real, like, let's say we get suspended 3 or 4 times, then are we gonna, I can't play football or basketball now because
yeah.
I mean, that's a representation of your school and your district. And
Yes.
if I get arrested, I could lose my job. I don't get a second chance. And that's different, I get that, but at the same time, if we're not teaching them consequences, like real consequences, not just, I went home for 5 days and had to go to a different school. If we show them they're going to get real consequences, could that not combat them wanting to push the limits even more?
Sure. Consequences self-centered. Okay. The other part of that question that you asked about if they're expelled, no, they cannot participate for the rest of the year. Okay.
And then this may be more for the chief. How long are you going to be able to sustain having 3 officers there full time? I know one is an extra duty detail, but are 2 or 3 of them extra duty?
2.
2. Okay. So I guess maybe the school board has to answer that then, is how long can they maintain having that extra duty detail there?
And I can answer that. When I came on board as chief in 2011, I met with Scott, and school board to agree to pay their salaries. 2 or 3 years ago, they began to pay their whole salaries and benefits, which allowed me to hire 3 more officers. Yes, we're short 4 right now due to the sheriff's office taking a few of them away from us, and not trying to pick on anybody, but we're short 4, really truly need 12. I mean, you got 19,000 people between 2.5, 3.5% per thousand. We got 36 officers now. We probably need close to 50. Zachary's growing. I mean, that's something I'll be working with the council and mayor with. Hopefully we can get additional officers. But the school board pays the whole salaries of all the officers, including anything they do in overtime or school events, anything like that. It comes out of the school board's budget.
All right, and then the last one was, how do you plan on managing keeping those students that are suspended and expelled away from school events? You have 1,600 kids. That's a really difficult thing, I can imagine, for you to handle.
Well, the kids who are suspended, on the days that they're suspended, they're not to attend any extracurricular event. That changes every day. The administration monitors that at the events. We also, any kid that has been expelled can never come on the campus at all. They're told that, the parents are told that. During the hearings, the board takes care of that. The school says the same thing. And they are not to come on campus. If they come on campus when they are not supposed to, the expelled kids especially, then they will be arrested. Okay? But with that being said, we have a big open campus, so it's kind of hard to, unless we catch them, they still come. And the parents know they're not supposed to come, but they still show up. So if they do, we'll have them arrested, yes. Okay. That's it. We'll move on to the next person. Miss Lisa Turner.
Okay. First, I just have a comment. The people that you are addressing in this room tonight are not the people that really need to be addressed. I think all of us that are here tonight are parents who are involved. I don't know how we get the other parents involved, but yes, it starts at home. Unfortunately, not everybody feels that way, but this group of parents do. I'm ashamed and embarrassed at the lack of people here tonight. I do have a couple of questions. Some I'm sure you're going to tell me that you can't answer, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Were either of the students involved in Thursday night's fight suspended or expelled?
I can't answer that question. Because I'll give you information about them that I can't.
Was one of them arrested?
Yes, in charge with the attempted second-degree murder and illegal carrying a weapon on the campus.
So will he be expelled now? Was he a student at Zachary High School?
Yes, and he will go through the process just like any other student.
Was he already expelled?
I can't answer that.
Okay, this is a question, or I guess it's going to be a statement, because you're not going to answer this one either. But if he was already expelled, suspended, why was he not recognized when he came through the gate?
I don't know if this happened outside.
There was no one here that night that was involved in that incident that was not allowed to be on this campus by law.
And we did recognize him when he came on campus. We asked, and he was allowed to be on campus. One of my officers recognized him.
Okay. The other question that I have, and I know that recently the state mandate has changed as far as COVID, and wearing masks and social distancing. But my next question is, why were they allowed to have quote-unquote midnight madness, but our kids were not allowed to have homecoming?
The, you know, as we move through COVID, decisions had to be made on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis. At the time, that's not where we were, where we could offer that. But as we move forward, at this point, I don't have any problems as long as we do what we're supposed to do and have functions and things like that.
My last question is for Mr. Jordan. How well do you feel you know the 1,600 students at your school?
I feel like I know, of course, not all of them personally, but the great majority well, and they know me.
Can I ask the students that are here tonight to stand up? And Mr. Jordan, I'd like for you to call them That's not an unreasonable request. How about we just pick a few?
Okay,
So I'm being dismissed, is what you're saying.
we answered your questions, but I'm not going to allow you to disrespect it.
Thank you.
And that's a disrespectful comment.
I just heard.
All right, next is Councilman Lyle Montgomery.
Hey, how y'all doing? Before I start speaking, I just want to say that it takes a whole community for safety. It takes parents, it takes the police, it takes everybody. So, with that being said, I cannot just point my finger at nobody because I teach my child to love everybody regardless of their color, not to stand or shoot nobody. So, I suggest every parent teach their child the same thing. But with that being said, I got some calls like at the beginning of this year about bullying going on in Zachary High schools. So, of course people call me because they know that I guess they want me to blow it up. But I don't always want to be the guy that says stuff about the school system because then I look bad, right? But I thank the young lady who pointed out everything I wanted to say up there. She did good. With that being said, it's like they reached out to me about bullying. Bullying was going on, and the environment was that if you're a certain person or you know some certain people, you can get away with some certain things in Zachary school. And that is the real issue, because I believe in fairness all across the board. You know, if whatever happens to my child, it should happen to your child. Nobody should get no special treatment. I don't care if you can run a 4.240. I don't care if you can catch a ball. I don't care if you can shoot through a hoop. You are not as important as that person that is studying Pythagorean theory. You know what I mean? Like, you're not as important as that person in college. I mean, in high school. So, I want to talk about this zero tolerance issue. I'm a graduate of Zachary High under the Honorable Jerry Boudreaux, right? And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. My 9th grade year, I fought at Zachary High, y'all. And y'all know what they didn't do to me? They didn't expel me. They didn't put me out. And I turned out all right. And I'm sure it's a lot of people that didn't get put out of school. If I would have got expelled from school, there was no telling where my life would have went at that point. So that zero tolerance, in its core, it was started, I think it was Bush Jr.'s administration. in its core, it feeds the prison, the school to prison pipeline.
Yes.
I was in the military. The military don't even have zero tolerance. So I don't know why our school still has a zero tolerance policy. That needs to change. And another thing that I wanted to address, Mr. Burke, right? You're the disciplinarian, right? I remember when y'all brought up about the disciplinary board, right? So according to the policy, you should have somebody that has no affiliation with the school, no affiliation with nothing on that board deciding the fate of our kids. Because there was an instance in Zachary schools about 2 or 3 weeks ago where a little girl was being bullied. Another little girl chased the girl across the road. The little girl didn't do nothing. Didn't do nothing to her. But when she raised up to hit the girl, what did the little girl do? She fought back. And I'm gonna be honest, I teach my daughter that. I teach her to walk away, to tell somebody, and if you get away and you cannot get away, then you have to defend yourself. So we shouldn't be kicking these kids out of school when we're failing as a system to address the bullying issues. See, the stabbing that happened Thursday night, right? Thursday night, it's the birth of a manifestation of all this horrible stuff that has been going on and been swept under the rug. Like I told y'all this, if you keep sweeping it under the rug festers and it stinks, and it's gonna mess up everything. You have to deal with these problems head on. So I didn't contact the school board. I know about 5 instances of bullying, and I politely told them to call their school board person, because I'm a council person. And then I don't want to be the one to always look like I'm on attack. I'm not on attack. I'm for what's right and for what's righteous. And anything other than that, then if you're not right and you're not righteous, then I got to do what I got to do, right? And there's no, all is fair, love no war. I have another thing, and I'm getting up here. Y'all say zero tolerance out of one breath, but then you say you offer anger management and conflict resolution skills and sadness and depression. I'm asking y'all as a school board, we're coming out of this COVID era, and tensions are high, anxiety is high, people have lost a lot of loved ones, they got people that's dealing with trauma without no counseling, they don't know how to deal with trauma, they don't know how to deal with anger management, conflict resolution. It's our job as a city, as a community, as a school board to help assist those people. So that's all I'm asking is as a community, let's work together, let's make this happen. Let's come up with real, viable solutions. Thank you.
Mrs. Katie Westbrook.
So much. Glad we made it through that first part. I want to say thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being willing to meet. Some of the things that were said earlier in the presentation part were things that I'm concerned about. One being the mentorship program. I think addressing mental health is important. I'm not sure, and I would like you to think about this, I'm not sure that putting extra on teachers in the classroom is the best way to do that. They're not enough, like literally enough. And I'm not a teacher, but I think maybe if we could consider some kind of communication, leadership, some sort of way that maybe children that need it, maybe not children that need it, maybe even all children, because if you don't know how to communicate If you can't express your feelings, if you can't deal with the trauma that you have, then you can't be successful. And so, although my children would probably say that they would oppose some sort of things like that because, you know, they don't need it, but all kids need that. And some sort of required elective on how to be human, how to be successful in life, how to be, you know, how to deal with the things from social media and pressure and all of this kind of bullying, that kind of stuff, could, I think, be pretty successful. There's got to be money for that. There's got to be grants for that. That's all we ever hear about. So I'd love to see something like that. So my real question is, when there's a fight at school, whether it's elementary, whether it's middle school, whether it's a 5'2" woman trying to deal with two 6'5" 18-year-olds, how are your staff supposed to address that? At school?
Staff?
Well, I mean, if you
Like,
have,
if a fight
say
breaks
you have
out,
a fight breaks out and you have two teenage boys fighting, how are they supposed to address that at school?
Well, what we tell our teachers, and we don't ask our teachers to get in and break up a fight, you know, the coaches will go in and do that. You know, of course, administrators, that's what we do. Coaches will jump in as well and break it up. And usually those things are broken up very quickly. We certainly wouldn't ask them or tell the teacher to break up a fight. Just stop is all we ask them to do.
And then people, you know, when you see something escalating, whether it's this or that or whatever, is it possible that, well, I'd expect that would be reported and be addressed as part of the program?
Yes.
Ms. Preston, I just want to respond. Go ahead, have a seat. I'm sorry. I don't intend for anything to be additional to teachers, but what we're looking at is perhaps having 5-10 minute videos at the beginning of class, something that we're not asking you to teach a lesson in anger management and that type of thing. That's not what we're asking. We're asking you to give the time for something to be presented at that time. Or in many schools, in elementary schools, they do bell ringers. High school, I think they still do them, I'm not sure. But there are things that we given. We're not asking teachers to come up with different things. But what better way for a child to learn than a teacher that they respect and hear it from? So I don't want you to think we're adding on a new curriculum for teachers. I agree, teachers are full. But all we're doing is asking you to allow that time and do those things in class. But thank you, Ms. Richards.
Okay. Ms. Marvel Reese. You don't have to. Talk loud, that's fine.
Okay, I have a three-part question. The first part is dealing with the disciplinary process. Who oversees the disciplinary process of Zachary School Committee? Who is the person over that?
Well, over the whole school system?
No, the disciplinary portion oversees the rules, the disciplinary hearings, when the disciplinary board meets. Who is that person?
I guess Mr. Burke handles the disciplinary review committee. He handles that portion of it. Policies are made by the board, and those policies are followed in accordance with what those policies are at the school level. And then anything that comes to the school district level would be the recommendation for expulsion.
Okay, so this year alone, with however many fights that has happened, how many of those fights resulted in expulsion? Have the school ever recommended expulsion and Mr. Burke felt that it should be something less, or did he always go along with what the school recommends?
At this year's data, of those that have come to fights for expulsion, I have affirmed those.
Okay. So I work in the juvenile justice system, and usually it's a 3-person committee which would rotate out like a teacher, an administrator, or a security officer, police officer, or it's a neutral party who does not work for the school. Do you feel that you can be objective with rules you're overseeing and your views on how you feel it should go? I mean, since your decision was already pretty much is made because you feel your rule is broken, or the rule that you're enforcing is broken. Can you be objective is what I'm asking.
I feel like I can be objective. As far as the person who hears the hearing, in all the districts that I'm familiar with, it is a child welfare and defense officer who is generally the designee of the superintendent. Typically, when a student is recommended for expulsion, they are recommended for expulsion to the superintendent, and the superintendent appoints the designee. For the school district, I am the designee for the to hear the expulsion hearing.
And do you consider yourself a neutral party?
I believe I'm going to go up in there and review the information and come up with an objective decision.
But none of your decisions, so everything the school has recommended has been what you felt was in favor of the student and the right decision so far this year.
Of the expulsions that I have affirmed this year, I have felt like the school has presented the information and has followed the steps that they needed to follow in bringing that to the hearing.
Okay, Ms. Maria Hitchens. Mrs. Montgomery, he makes those decisions. If there's any, in most cases, if not all, I review that information also.
Nobody gonna make you solely by yourself. Right?
In a hearing,
he makes, the evidence that's presented, he bases his decision on that. And then at that point, if there is then the next step they would like, they could appeal to the board.
I just want to be clear that
Yeah.
work makes the initial decision by itself with no input from nobody else.
Okay. All right.
How y'all doing? Yeah, I need y'all attention. Thank you. So, I am a recent graduate of Zachary. I graduated in 2018. I have a sibling here, which is why I'm here. And my time at Zachary, I did enjoy it, not gonna lie. I'm currently at LSU. I'll be graduating in May. And I wanted to talk about the mentorship. I've already spoken with Mr. DeVilliers. So I'm glad that y'all are incorporating that because mental health is definitely something important. And in college, I can say that. I am the founder of the Minority Physician Assistant Club at LSU. We were founded in 2021. Yes, my club caters to a certain group of students, but I feel that we are able to collaborate with EBR. I work with 4th graders, 5th graders, reading and things like that. We can come to Zachary. We have no problem with that. We have no problem working with your high school students, middle school students if they need guidance, college advice they might not want to go to college. Anything else, we're here for that. We're here to provide available solutions for these students. And also, I know that you guys mentioned you're including social workers. I just did want to mention that representation does matter. And every student might not be comfortable with talking to people or might not feel like they can go to them here. Personally, I went to Coach Perry. I was a track athlete. Mr. McDonald also, I will talk to him as well. You just have to have people that you're comfortable with. And I'm 20 years old. I'm in their age range. We're all in their age range as college students. We're ready to work. That's what I'm telling y'all. We're ready to work. So it's not to be us to come together and work with your students, whether it be through video calls or you guys can offer a weekend where seniors come out or juniors come out and, ask any question they have about college, ask any question they have about financial advice, because I can tell you a lot about money and saving. College is hard. Life is hard. After I left Zachary, I thought I was going to be happy to get out of high school, and now I'm happy to get out of college. Like, I'm ready to go. So we're here, Impact is here, we're ready, and we can definitely start in the spring. That's all I have to say.
Wait a minute.
Bria?
Did you say, Bria, did you give your information to Mr. Cavilier?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We had a long discussion during the week, and we will get back together either later this week or next week.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Eric Smith.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. A lot of y'all didn't know me, a lot of y'all by the last name Mancotti. Jack, you don't know me, but you do know me. Chief McDaniel, you know me. But what I'm going to touch on that committee you got. They got committees all the way, any way you look. But Zachary Committee is built of Zachary Community Schools. Some of these people need to be involved in your committee. Because then they give you all power, which you got already. You get me? You're not trying to understand, but you got all power. Once they make a decision and it hits your desk, you run with it. I've been dealing with you ever since you've been selling TVs when you was young too. I go back that far. McDavis know me. My ex-wife used to work for him. He deal with me on certain things. But putting you as chief, when all these people, children get in trouble and they walk before you, you know some of the parents, but you make a decision to get rid of them. Before you get rid of them, like that young lady said, find out about it. See what the problem is. Look into it. I've been in front of McDaniel 4 or 5 times. You got it? I've been in front of Mr. McDonald 4 or 5 times. I had a problem child. She got out of your school. Right now, you got one who ain't a problem child, but you don't know Charles Robinson is my grandson. Because he was an athlete, y'all love him. Charles is an angel to y'all. Am I lying? Huh? I got another one coming along. He's a good child. He got some bullying going on around him now. His name is Jalen Nixon. He's in the 9th grade. I got one coming from junior high coming in. I got grandchildren all over y'all school. But before you start to suspend a child and kick him out of school, see what you got other than he's an athlete or a track star or a baseball star. There's more to education. There's more to life besides that. And I live in the Zachary community. But I'm out of the Zachary community because I live on Plains Road. In the roundhouse. You got it? Now, you got other things going on. I watch in Zachary. I can't travel through Zachary because y'all come to people's houses and check their children to see that they live in Zachary, but you got a million children want to carpool here, and y'all got children here that don't supposed to be here. Half the teachers train the children in school here. We see it. We're in the middle of it. You got buses that pick them up, but y'all come to our house. My grandbaby been going here ever since she's been in kindergarten. She's now in the 5th grade, and y'all checking to see do she live in the Zachary community? I pay taxes Zachary. I got 4 LLCs in Zachary. Understand where I'm coming from? I pay that check that pay you. That's where the tax money comes from. That thing needs to be addressed better than what it is. Now you can do with it what you want, but before you suspend the child, don't look at my grandbaby as a king and somebody else's child as a small person. They are all one, they're just children. And children only get what's fed to them. You got 170-something cameras at this school. This is a school, not a prison. Get it right. Hey, Jack, don't show us
Mr. John Walton.
I'm just curious. I had 2 kids that go here, and obviously all the stuff that happened, my daughter is freaking out a bit. I'm just curious how you guys are working to dissuade fears from students that go here. I mean, she's literally asking me to do virtual school again, and I told her if I had that option, I would do it. So I'm just curious how you guys are working to dissuade those fears.
Mr. Walton, I will say this, you know, I'm listening to all these different things going on. The biggest thing for us is communication. If you have a situation as a parent and you know that you have a child that has a fear, please reach out to us so we know. Ms. Mason and her department, which oversees social workers, counselors, all those folks, we will definitely work with those kids. The issue is that unless we know whether it's kids having problems with other kids or if it's kids that are having social and emotional issues, if we know, we will help 100%. So just communicate with the school and reach out to us.
A lot of stuff has been asked and answered, but I'm just curious with the SROs, and you guys have what, 3 now, 4 now, what specific role, and Chief, maybe you can answer this, what's the specific role on a daily basis, specific to students, do they play day in, day out?
Like I said earlier, we're here to ensure the safety and security and welfare of all students, faculty, staff, but also we're involved with every student. We see them in the hallway, we visit with them at lunchtime, when they get off the bus, when they get on the bus, at recess, we're walking the halls, we're high-five them. When you get an SRO, you get a standing ovation at a school graduation, that means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my SROs, that they have that relationship with students here. I think it goes a long way, making this a great school and a great community.
All right, appreciate that, dude.
Thank you.
I would like to tell you that our social workers, they just left. They just left, but they're getting ready to run some groups at the high school. So ask your daughter that when they announce that type of thing, to please be willing to go and sign. She can talk to her counselor, see what she feels comfortable. Thank you.
Jason Day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm new to this community. I actually moved here last summer from Japan. So a lot of what goes on around here is kind of whoa. So just excuse my ignorance based on my questions and my comments, but previously living in Japan, there's a lot of inclusiveness. The communities get together with the teachers, and there's kind of a reciprocatory kind of thing going on there. I don't see that here, and I'm curious. My first question is do we do some sort of open house thing where the parents get with the teachers either during the school year previously to kind of understand the expectations of what's going on in the classroom? And then my second question is more reference with my children, because my children are half Japanese. There's no ESL representation in this district. from what I was told when we moved here, I believe he passed away from COVID last year. Is there any plans to have that person come into the district to help some of these kids who deal with English as a second language, to help them kind of move forward? That's my second question. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's cute, man, quick questions. Okay, there is an ESL program. Our program is not a pull-out program. We have content-based. And what we do, because we do not have someone who speaks, did you say Japanese? What did you do? Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm sorry. We do try to bring in individuals who do, because we don't have Mr. Ricketts, that's who they're talking about, who was here, who spoke almost any language you can think of. We have not been able to find another one, but we do have an ESL program. And those, what we do is we bring in people to try to help them with certain things. Our ESL program is, again, content-based. That means we do not pull kids out to teach them English. We have them learn English through their content. So if you, please feel free, Ms. Davis, give me a call at the office if you have an issue. Okay? Thank you.
Mrs. Davis, to answer your first question. Here in Zachary, we have lots of events. We have open house, we have all those things throughout elementary school, constantly having events at the school. COVID has stopped all of that for the last year and a half, but those things will start ramping back up. So. Ms. Mary Williams.
Hello. All right, Mr. Berger, just seen you recently, and just up in here listening tonight, most of what I'm hearing is everything is targeted for Zachary High, not the Zachary community. You do the Zachary Community School District, right? But everybody, I feel like this is mainly addressing on the Zachary High incident, right? Instead of looking at it truly as a whole. Yeah, it starts at home, but at the same time, at home, how much can we do at home? We learn to y'all for how long? 8 hours? And that's when we get our breather, right? We get our breather with our kids, we're trusting to God at the same time. If you don't know that your child wants to do something at school up here in Zachary, because I got one that's came through, I got one that's here now, and one that you just put out. Nothing more than what he deserves. And that's the difference. When your child, you want to say that what the disciplinary board is doing, I'm not going to be a different type of man, but at the same time, I was raised right up here. You want to say what the disciplinary board is doing. How many, 1,600 right here, Zachary High, what more can they do amongst the other schools? So if you don't have any place at home with your kids, you know, what difference is the school going to make? If they don't know what consequence is, it's not going to matter what the school says, and at the same time, if your child's suspended, you need to uphold where it's going, find out where it's going when he's leaving the house, because if he's suspended, he shouldn't be leaving the house. You know what I'm saying? My biggest thing is, if that's the case, I have one that's here in high school. I've never had no problems with nothing with these people at these schools. I'm grateful for that. At the same time, you take a lot off me. You know, I like to say everything is different, but yet it's all the same. My thing is, with COVID, the COVID that we had, my child is stressing, and I mean, I've had pretty much straight A students from kindergarten, pre-K on up. My child is stressing over whatever it is that she failed that year. I feel like that COVID year should have been exempt. You know, at the same time, just like, I mean, they were doing virtual, but they couldn't, I mean, I'm sure the stress that you were dealing with at home, right? Trying to work on a computer, trying to, first off, get disciplined enough to do this at home, because it's a new age world. Just blink of an eye. You know, how they going to adapt to that? They're at home, I'm at home. It's totally out of the norm, but my child is stressing over whatever it is that she failed last year, COVID year, that's carrying over to this year. She's a junior, she'll be graduating next year. I feel like COVID year should have been an issue. That's the case, it shouldn't be, since I've seen on the news about satisfactory, unsatisfactory, it shouldn't be letter grades for last year COVID kids, for any grades. Give them a chance to pick it up where they left off. They'll catch on because I mean, if it's a gap here and you make it this far, they got to fall in somewhere.
Ms. Williams, I'll say that COVID was very stressful on our kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was very stressful on our teachers and our parents, and
Mm-hmm.
it was stressful on all of us. And I do understand your concern, and those are the things that we are trying to work with kids to try to close that gap. I mean, they did lose a lot, and we know that, and we're trying to make that difference. So,
But just remember that's my main concern tonight. Because if she fails, then you will be seeing me again. If she wants to be crying, you will be seeing me again. Because I'm a different type of parent. I don't have time to try to address my child's tears. I live like this way. There's no reason for a child to cry. So if she comes to me crying behind school, because she more worried about what you guys say and think or do, versus what I'm saying think or do.
yeah,
So therefore, she comes through, gives you no problem.
it's a partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lauren Greenlee.
Yeah, I just really want to make a quick statement. The information I've been gathering from my child, who's been here for several years, is that the perception of the administration, or no, the perception of the students is that the administration is completely out of the loop. They hear a lot of talk from the administration. My child respects and adores most of the people there. But when we're at home and we're trying to discuss how things are changing, whether they're positive or negative, the perception is it's somewhat, it's a joke. Flaky is the word. Out of touch. So I just want to put that out there. They're really good at putting on fronts. They're not going to seek you out. At least not all of them are. They're not the same as we were. I have to seek my children's hearts out diligently every day. And I don't know how that would be any different at school. So I appreciate the counselors. I know that's a tough job. I appreciate the resource officers. I appreciate everything that everybody's doing. But we need to look at these kids as who they are. They're not who we were. This is a whole new group of kids. And what are we doing to ensure that we're grabbing their attention, their hearts, and actually seeking them out, not waiting for them to come to us because it's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rita Gibbons.
Good evening, everyone. And I would like to thank the Zachary community for everything they've done for my son. But I want to revert back to the bullying and reporting it to the administration and nothing happens. I have several messages that I reported that my child, who's now expelled, he's a 3.2 grade point average senior football player, track athlete, all that. He had perfect attendance within our meeting with Mr. Burks for the expulsion. He said Darryl had a lot of good things going for himself. As far as his GPA, perfect attendance, he's always here. And I'm not saying that Darryl hasn't gotten into any trouble, but nothing major where he's been absolutely suspended or kicked out. And again, with that being said, Darryl is expelled right now from school from a campus disturbance, but nothing happened with the other child. And I spoke with that child's mother, not with them, because they couldn't allow me that information. So again, with that being said, as a mother with a child who has been on the honor roll in the Zachary community since 6th grade here, my child is expelled and there's still nothing happening, and it's still bullying going on. That was reported, but my child was the only one that was reprimanded on the behavior that happened with the campus disturbance, but they kept the other child to allow him to be an athlete on the football field. What about my child's feelings? How does he feel at home? Is he depressed? Is he down on himself? Who's checking on him? Thank you, Coach Brew. But other than that, who cares what's going on with him? Can he turn to the streets? Can he do anything? What is it for him to do? We're keeping up on his accelerated work on the computer so that he can maybe be able to come back to school. But my question is, I wrote the appeals letter. It says in the handbook that under stipulations that if your child is expelled at any given time, that they can be readmitted. Who other than you, Mr. Burks, made the decision that it'll be reevaluated for the spring?
The policy does state with expulsions that the superintendent can reevaluate that at any time. So that is always something that is possible. But,
so what were the good things that was going on with him that would have kept him from expulsion and kept the other child?
I don't know.
I was speaking with Mr. Burks.
I don't think Mr. Burks.
Well, he was in a meeting, he had them.
If the child was not brought for expulsion, then he would know.
Well, my child was brought for expulsion, so he does know. But the other child is still running on the football field on Friday night.
I don't think we can talk about the other cases.
I'm not speaking on the other case, I'm speaking on Darryl. My child is at home, that's down on his luck, that's down on himself. That could be making horrible decisions, but I'm the parent that's not allowing it. I'm pushing my child, the effort. So how does it look to my child that the person whom I physically had a fight with, an altercation that disturbed the campus, not just me, another individual, as if I hit this lady and she kicks me back. But you put me out and keep her here.
Ms. Gibbons, I certainly can discuss the behavior of another child.
Mr. Burks, I'm not asking for the other behavior. I'm asking who made the decision.
I made the decision
To agree with what the school had already said, because the decision was made when we got here.
based on the information presented at the hearing, I made a decision.
That he was being bullied and nothing ever happened. But when he retaliated finally, you know, he was snuck in a locker room where I guess there wasn't a disturbance, but he was told to let it go. He was told to let it go when the other child hit him. And he was told to let it go, and he did. Then they came back for him. So then when he decides to retaliate, he's the only one with an offense.
Okay, next is Kayla Newman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Newman. I am a teacher with the Zachary Community School District. I've been a teacher at Zachary High for the last 9 years. I have been teaching for 17 years total. And one of the things that, and I could speak about a lot of things, and I'm sure my administration, you know, they're always running when I go to their doors because, you know, what is Ms. Newman gonna have to say? So they're probably wondering, but tonight I just want to speak about communication because I felt like it was lacking in, you know, recent events. I did reach out to a district office personnel who is present today, not sitting, you know, at the table, to say that I felt like we needed some roundtable discussions with Mr. DeVilliers to get some educator input. She told me she would pass that information along, and to this day, no one has asked the teachers at the high school how we feel. We should have a voice in this situation. We should have some voice as to how our school is being run. I am going to agree that, you know, we have a great school. There is no school in the area that can compete with Zachary High. The opportunities that our kids have at this school are second to none. You think about the pathways that our kids have. You know, I always see, you know, because I am an Algebra 2 teacher, and it's like, why should we teach Algebra 2 in high school? when we should be teaching welding and carpentry and all these other things, and we're teaching those things, you know, along with getting kids ready for college. We have all sorts of pathways, and the majority of our kids are great kids, and we've got great parents with us here today. In terms of the communication I wanted to speak of, when those events happened Thursday night, I woke up in the middle of the night and had received a text from my sister-in-law. My nieces were at the game, and then they got some, you know, disturbing news. They were confused. I had no idea that things had happened until 2:30 in the morning when I read that text. I was expecting some type of email that morning, some type of message from our district personnel, some type of feedback as to how I should be ready to receive my students on Friday morning. It was a somber mood. We had no communication from the district office. We had no communication from our, you know, high school administration, and we had to receive our students. Do you think they wanted to talk about those things? Do you think kids were worried? Yes, they were. And I do feel like, you know, that was something that should have been addressed with us. We did not have a meeting until 2:15 Friday afternoon, a meeting in which there never really was a place for us to give our input and ask questions. Some of us taught the child. Some of us were teaching the child. Our students were his classmates, and we never even got a moment of silence, you know, to think about this child who was in critical, you know, care. That never was brought up, and it really hardly was brought up tonight. And we teach kids. In terms of the communication, that is something that has always been lacking. It was brought to our attention, you know, Friday afternoon that there's this string of videos on this TikTok. I talked to one of the teachers this afternoon. I never even watched the video. I do know that all those fights on that video definitely did not occur in the same day on our campus. You know, I do think that painted us in a bad light, and that is not, you know, the daily Zachary High, but we do have some issues. And we have had issues in bathrooms, places where cameras are not, you know, visible. And when those things happen, no one really communicates with the teachers as to what the outcome was. When our students are involved in altercations, no one's really communicating to us what happened, what can we do about it. No one's asking us if we know the child, what's character witnesses. We're with them every day. I have a student that I just found out on Friday that was suspended and going to be recommended for expulsion, and I have no idea why. And he was a good kid in my class. Some of the conversations that have been occurring, and this is something, you know, I'll talk to Mr. Jordan about tomorrow, but I do feel like communication with the teachers, we need to hear from our administration on some issues. We need to know what's, you know, happening on our campus, and we need to know how to redirect the conversation, because when we don't know, I feel like we had this, you know, a couple weeks ago, our governor decides no masks in school, right? And there was in that moment an emergency message sent to parents, make sure your kids wear masks to school tomorrow. And I did think, okay, maybe that was important, but so was what happened Thursday night. And we had teachers show up to school Friday morning and did not know anything about what had happened. We had students sitting in our classrooms that their parents didn't have the chance to have that first conversation with them because they were hearing it from other kids on school. And that's when I think social media starts to spiral out of control, because we're not hearing it from the district first and foremost. My other, because you know, if you know me, you know that I fight for our kids. Mr. DeVilliers, you know that last year, 3 weeks into school, I had a conversation with one of our administrators about the kids who were not coming to school, who were truant. I was told, you know, there's not much we can do about truancy. At 6 weeks, when we're still dealing with these same kids that I had background knowledge on because I had taught them their 9th grade year, and they were good students. I talked to you about these, I don't know if you remember that conversation, and so 6 weeks when we're still not doing anything and these kids are sitting at home doing nothing, I talked to you, Mr. DeVilliers, and I said we have to intervene. I offered to teach these kids using our Edgenuity platform, which is used for credit recovery, and I offered to teach these kids. I offered to put them on credit recovery. I will be their teacher. I just did this over the summer, where I had 100% kids pass. I was Zooming every day. Miss Henry's shaking her head because she knows she is in agreement. And nothing was done. Nothing was done to try to intervene with these kids who were failing everything. And so now we're here this year, and we still have kids who are failing everything. And some of them, they are getting into trouble. Because when kids have nothing to lose and they are failing academically, they will be the ones to make those risky decisions. I feel my child is in 6th grade, and I do want my child to be a student here at Zachary High School. This is the best opportunity for my child. But I don't know if it's worth it with the way things have been spiraling. I am pleading. We have students who are failing everything. We need more manpower. We need more manpower. We need more counselors. We need someone checking on kids who are failing 5 and 6 classes on the regular. The classroom teacher is doing everything they can. We are calling parents and we're reaching a dead end. We have a very high-risk population of students, high risk for failing academically, high risk for getting into behavior problems because of it. And what are we going to do about that population of kids? We offer the best for the best and the brightest. And I'm asking you, as our district leader, we need to start pulling in some resources for our kids who are struggling to get there. I did question whether or not I should speak up because I do know that there comes some negative connotations with that. But I did feel like some of these conversations I have already had with people on the panel. And I'm not sure that anything has really been done about it. Some of these have been personal with you, Mr. DeVilliers, and I'm still feeling like we're not getting those resources. If you would like to continue the conversation, I do have lots of ideas, but I feel like if we could have some teacher input, some roundtable discussions. I work with great educators. They've got some of the answers. No one's asking us. I hope y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Stewart. It's not an excuse, but we were going to be at the high school on Friday to visit with teachers, but we weren't able to do that because of the situation. My plan is to get to the high school soon to meet with teachers. I will be there all day because I know as you folks come through into your planning periods, this is the time that you have available to actually meet with me and some of the staff that will be there. Each and every day, over the last 2 years, it's been a challenge. I can tell you that it hasn't been easy. Okay, we have some ground to make up, just like everyone has ground to make up because kids weren't at school. Kids need to be in front of their teachers because the teachers are the people who are in the trenches that make it happen every day. We know that. We do need to close that gap. We need to support you. I think we have been supporting you, but we have to do that. Okay. As we move forward, this was a good night. We shared our thoughts, our frustrations. There was maybe a few breaks, but the issue is that it really comes down to what you said, communication. We have to work as a team. This is about our community working together. We have to do our part. And the community, the parents, we all have to come together. And so, all I'm gonna say is that we will step it up. We've been working, I can tell you, these people, and the people in my office, during this pandemic, put in lots of hours to make sure that we try to get it moving. But we have a lot of ground to cover. And so we have to do better. We have to do better as educators. We have to do better as a community and as parents. But it's going to come with communication. If you know that your child needs assistance, communicate that. If your child is having some social and emotional needs, share that with us. We have the ability, we have the want, and if we don't have the person that you need or your child needs, we'll look for it. You know, it's one of those situations where I've always said I want to give every child the best opportunity to be successful in life, in no matter what area they want to go into. We have to provide what they need. You've shared a lot of your thoughts tonight, and I've received those. I know that there are maybe some areas we need to pick up the pace, or we need to do things different. And we'll continue as a team, an administrative team, but also working with the teachers. Because you're right, the teachers, you guys have been working hard. I know that. These kids are behind where they normally are, right? All of them. Whether they're a low performer or a high performer, they're still behind, and we need to close that gap. So I'm looking forward to moving forward tonight, both on the academic side, the social emotional side, and making sure our schools are safe. And so that's my commitment to you. And so I look forward to tackling those things and working with you to get those things done. Always, I'm available. Come by and visit with me. I don't mind sitting and talking to you. And a number of you in this room right now have done it. And so I thank you for that. You know, I will say this, news media people are here. Those folks have my cell phone. They all have my cell phone. You know why? Because if they want to know something, I want to make sure they get the correct information. And so I'll share it with them. So I don't have anything to hide. We are going to do that as a community. We have to do that. So thank y'all for coming tonight. We appreciate you, and have a good evening.
Thank you for being maybe the last real journalist alive.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a real big fan of your work, and I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Let me end this real quick.